Welcome to the Riverfront. My name is Michelle. I'm going to be your host and your guide throughout this memorable tour that you're going to take of our beautiful city here in Montgomery, Alabama. I wanted to start off here simply because this is where a lot of our history unfolds. This is the Encantada Village, historically known, but right directly behind you is where the 5 organized tribes were housed. You had your Choctaw, Chickasaw, the Cherokee, the Creeks, the Seminoles, the Muskogee Indians that all migrated here in this area. And of course, as you know, they were here first. So you can't come to Montgomery, Alabama, you can't visit Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana without first talking about the natives, the Native Americans, the indigenous tribes that lived here in this area. We all know the story about the Trail of Tears, and if you don't know about the Trail of Tears, I implore you to please go online and look it up. How Andrew Jackson, by 1830, petitioned Congress to remove native tribes from their land. This is the South, so in the South, they were looking for property. The settlers were looking to pretty much cultivate land. Cotton, by 1819, was king. So what did they do? They started labeling these people as savages. For years, this indigenous tribe was here, all 5 of them. So at one point in time, Alabama had nearly 38 tribes. One of those tribes, Alabama, gets her name. If you can tell me the name of the tribe, I might send you something a little bit extra. Think about it. Name the tribe that Alabama gets her name. You ready? Alabama. They were called the Alabama Indians, nicknamed the Alabamas. So you can't come here and look over their history. You can't come here and not talk about the genocide that transpired with these people. Our Trail of Tears starts right here. Trail of Tears, that old federal road, they actually talked to these people, made up these treaties to basically and ultimately remove them from their property. So our Trail of Tears starts right here, old federal road, all the way up to what is now called Fort Payne, Alabama, pushed over to Oklahoma. So if you want to find the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Cherokee, you might want to go to Oklahoma. We do have the Poarch Creek Indians that are here, some of the Muskogees, but very few. The Seminoles pushed down into Florida. So how can we talk about civil rights? How can we talk about human rights or even the Civil War without first talking about those Trail of Tears? Those Trail of Tears also were tears of many, many women that didn't make it, and they died along the way. So now, 1819, cotton is king, settlers are coming in. We're going to go over to the domestic slave trade because that same old federal road is the road that they used to bring enslaved African people into this region by foot. And then when that was too expensive, they brought them in by rail and by boat. So I want to take you all just on a little journey. Get those red glasses out now. Come on, we're going on a journey. So right here, commodities. When you talk about black gold, we're talking about some 40,000 enslaved African people that were in the region before Alabama even became a state. 1819, we became a city, state, and a county. What was driving the commerce? Cotton and enslaved African people. Right here behind me is a sign that was erected by the Equal Justice Initiative. And if you notice, there's something a little different here. You have the continent of Africa and then the state of Alabama. Well, that's because the Black Heritage Council came in and supported their mission, which was to erect nearly 22 signs, but we only have 3 here in Montgomery. This talks about the domestic slave trade, kidnapping enslaved people from the north, bringing them to the south to be bought, sold, and traded. This is where the hub for black people, black gold, commerce, if you will, commodities, if you will, came right through here. To your left-hand side, our train station. But I really want to take you to the riverfront. By the end of the Civil War, 435,000 enslaved African men, women, and children, their descendants, were right here in the state, and many of them here in this region. Why? Because Montgomery, Alabama was one of the top slave trading hubs in the Union. You do the math. Y'all want to go to the riverfront? Before you do, I got to get you prepared. Toya Jones, season 14 of The Voice.
Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
I wanted to bring you here to our riverfront. This is the Alabama River. There are 3 rivers that comprise of this one river. It's the Coosa and the Tallapoosa. They all intertwine to make it the Alabama River. There were 3 docks. You have Mobile, Selma, Montgomery. So coming up this pathway here, the steamboats. This is a replica of the Harriet I. This is the Harriet II, the Harriot. I'll tell you all a little bit about that later. This is the Harriet II. Today it's used as our entertainment cruise ship, but before that, back in the early 1800s, it was used to transport enslaved African people in through this port. So right around in here, this place will flood on a given one good, hurricane. So I want to bring you down through here though, because there's something in your box that I want you to open it up. And I want you to pull up that little ball of cotton. See this bowl of cotton here? So historically, of course, cotton was not only king, but this was the main commodity at the time that was driving the commerce for Montgomery, Alabama, along with the importation of slaves. Initially, there's little pricks here. Those pricks should be pricking your fingers. But I just want you, just for a moment, take those red glasses out of your bag, and I want you to put them on because I need you to see. The song said, I once was blind, but now I see. So people ask me all the time, well, Michelle, what do you think that people are going to think or say after they take your tour? I don't care. What I want you to do is I want you to open up your eyes so that you can see. That's why we have the red glasses. See this history through a different perspective. Open up your heart. Take off the blinders and put on the red glasses so that you can see what we're trying to say to you, so that you can hear. And after you hear, after you see, then you can make the positive changes that you need to change in terms of social justice and taking this conversation where it should go. So this bowl of cotton, I want you to stand up now. I want you to stand up and let's do a little yoga. Ain't nobody down here. Y'all want to do some yoga? Let's do some yoga. Now I want you to take that ball of cotton and I want you to stand in the position. I want you to stretch up. And then we're gonna go all the way down. We're gonna stretch that back. But as you're stretching that back, I also want you to just stay there. Stay in this position and have that cotton in your hand. And I want you to pretend that it's 90-degree weather, or that it's raining, or that it's extremely cold. And if you can imagine from sun up to sundown, my dad says from can to can't, right? Now I want you to take 3 steps forward, back bent on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Can you imagine doing that all day? You may have your baby on your back, or maybe you don't have any soles in your shoes. Can you imagine being bent over all day? After you pick that cotton, I want you to take the seeds out. This is before the Eli Whitney, before the cotton gin. You have to take the seeds out of the bowl of cotton. And after you do that, I want you to bale it, weigh it. You bring it down here to what we call the cotton slide. And they would roll those big bales of cotton down to the steamboats, like what you have here. Come on over here, I want you to see this too. Hold on to that cotton, put it back in your, whoop, I dropped it. Right here, this is a timeline that talks about Montgomery's history. Just want you to kind of scroll through here. And just if you will, at one glance, is there anything missing that you can see? Anything missing? We have right here, they're talking about the indigenous, of course, DeSoto, talking about Dexter and Scott, John Scott. This is John Scott. I'm sorry, this is Andrew Dexter, and this is John Scott. Andrew Dexter was an attorney from Massachusetts. John Scott was a planter from Georgia, owned plenty of slaves. Right here. Streets named after them and everything. City built on commerce. What's missing is the commerce. Those enslaved African people, some 435,000 towards the end of the Civil War. There's no indication of it, except for when you get to a city built on commerce. We'll put the graphic up so you can see it. It gets down to the Harriet arrived and transformed Montgomery into an important regional hub for the shipping, trading, and storing of cotton and many other important commodities. There's no mention of the people that built this city. That's why I wanted to bring you down here, because some of those people, those women, they also made the bricks, they built the buildings, they were part of construction crews. And not only that, they aided in terms, well, you know what? It's not even aided. They were forced into experimentation. James Marion Sims. This is a tour where I need your eyes to be open and for your heart to be enlightened. So now that you've learned a little bit of history, how Montgomery was founded, the route into the city, this is where those men, women, and children came. They walked to many of their deaths, many of them to the auction block. But there's a tunnel that I want you to somewhat feel the presence. There was a man by the name of John Newton who wrote a song about the amazing grace. Now, his grace was because he was a slave owner or slave trader. He worked on the slave ships, and his eyes were enlightened. They were open. So next, coming up, you're going to hear Toya Jones, season 14 of The Voice, sing Amazing Grace. But in that, I want you to close your eyes as she sings it and just be open to having your eyes opened so that you can learn a little bit more of this history.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
So we're getting ready to make a turn. A lot of our streets are named after past presidents, Confederate soldiers. This street here is Coosa Street. Remember, I told you that there were two rivers that coincide with Alabama. So this is Coosa Street, but historically it was known as Nigger Street. They nicknamed it that because Rosa Parks boarded the bus right here at the corner of Market and Monroe. So really there should be a statue of her here, but unfortunately it's on the opposite side. But this was also the colored entrance to all of the buildings or all of the businesses that led to the inside of shops, the Montgomery Fair, the Crest. This was the colored entrance. It was mandated by law, by Jim Crow laws, to have two separate entrances, sometimes three. And so this is the colored entrance, but it's on a very famous street. It's really the historic Black business district, but there's no sign of that here, except for one little piece of history that the owners decided to preserve. And I want to take you all inside so you can see. Let's go.
The face in the stones is a mirror looking into you. For beneath you streams have flowed and rivers of earth have moved beneath your feet, but you have never witnessed the immovability of stones quite like these. You see, the weight of our sorrows was growing so enormous, our spirits were weak. Strong winds of resistance kept blowing, and to this journey, the outcome seemed bleak. And yet, we traveled on. Dr. King felt the brush of an angel's wing, cried out, "Let freedom ring!" And the stones, well, they cried out too. For darkly we gazed into the days ahead, and we looked to see the might of her granite wonders there, beneath the touch of time's unerring hand, like priceless treasures sinking in the sand. The way they hold you, give you a way forward and a doorway in, staunches your need to leave, and then becomes faithful by going nowhere. And just like you too, who have come from so far to be touched by everything you found. But until we reach a common ground and become unbound, because the well is running dry, racial tensions are running high, under 21, far too young to die. No, it ain't fair. It's hard when you're looking for love and it ain't there. Hard when you're looking for peace and it ain't there. Hard when you're looking for joy and it ain't there. But how long will it be till a voice of liberty can cry out so free and ask, what can you do for your country? Not what can your country do for you? How long will it be till a voice of liberty can cry out so free and say that truth crushed to the earth will one day rise again? How long will it be till a voice of liberty can cry out so free and say, I have a dream? How long will it be till a voice of liberty can cry out so free without the stones having to cry out too? So I gotta keep moving, Lord, moving, Lord. We've come a long way from where we've been, but we got to keep moving till we move on in. Ooh,
One male house slave, 52 years old, sound of wind and free from blemishes. What am I offered, gentlemen? What am I offered? Make a bid. We'll make it hot.
So now we're here at the fountain. They call it One Court Square. Historically, it's known as the slave auction. This is the marketplace where men, women, and children were brought up from the riverfront, held at one of those depots along the way, and then brought here to be bought, sold, and traded. Today, it is the site of our Black Lives Matter mural, which I am very, very happy to say that is my design and something that I curated along with some of my fellow colleagues. And so basically, this is where the footsteps of those men, women, and children were brought here. If you were to start from 1619, it goes all the way around, all the way to 2020, where we are today, still flat on our backs, dealing with the injustices and the inhumane practices of killing Black people without a cause. But right here are the footsteps of where to honor those men, women, and children that were bought, sold, and traded. This is Hebe. She's the cupbearer to the gods. She's also the fountain of youth. But today she's a distraction from what this real history is all about in downtown Montgomery, Alabama. The women, along with the men, mainly women, helped build the buildings. They crafted the bricks. So in your packet, in your little box, there's a little bit of a brick there, and I want to show you. I'm going to take you to one of the spaces where enslaved African women not only made the bricks, but they built the building. But right here, this is a sacred place for us because this is where our ancestors constantly speak to us on a day-to-day basis as to the inhumane injustices that transpired right here. I wanted to also bring someone that's kind of hidden in the shadow. There's a narrative out there that talks about the women of the civil rights movement, but oftentimes they miss a couple of the key players. And one of them just so happens to be the mother of Butler Browder. Her name was Aurelia Browder. And Butler, thank you for coming. And can you just share with us about your mother, what she meant to the movement? Because she's hidden, but your mother's name is actually engrafted in stone on the corner here. So let's just talk a little bit about Browder versus Gale and your mom and her role in the civil rights movement.
My mother was a lead plaintiff in the case Browder v. Gale, and that case is why Montgomery is the birthplace of the modern civil rights movement. It changed our culture from a legal standpoint of being controlled by Plessy v. Ferguson as opposed to Browder v. Gale. Browder v. Gale guaranteed us our rights under the Constitution, under the 14th Amendment. Plessy violated that. It took those rights away. And that's the premise that we live under today, Plessy v. Ferguson, equal rights and protection of the law for everybody. My mother was a lead plaintiff because she was arrested on the bus prior to the noted Rosa Parks, as were many other people. Rosa Parks was not the first to be arrested or to refuse to give up her seat, but really the last. There were many people before, even before my mother. The first incident that I know about was in 1948 with my mother, but the one that's most noted in history occurred in 1955, months before the arrest of Rosa Parks. My mother was born in 1919, and as we know, the Great Depression occurred in 1929. Well, shortly thereafter, my mother and her other siblings were taken to Birmingham to work in the white people's homes, who were factory workers mostly, and to do whatever trades they could do to make a living. The boys stayed home with their father, and the girls went with their mother. From that point forward, my mother came back to Montgomery in the late 30s, early 40s. She bought 2 houses on South Hall Street. One she lived in, and she rented the other to her sister. Then when she met my father in the mid-40s, she moved to Highland Avenue, and she rented the other house that she was in, to her brother. Finally, she sold both of them. She also owned property on Pier Hill Road. She sought to build a hotel on that piece of property in 1960. She submitted a building permit to the city of Montgomery. This was the property that she was raised on. They told her that the water table was too high, so she sold the property. That property now houses the industrial park at the intersection of Pier Hill Road and Interstate 85. Her first arrest in 1948 by the bus driver she resorted to never having that problem again. That's what caused her to buy cars and to put them on taxi stands. She never traded in a car. Once she bought it and used it for a while, she converted it to a taxi. She developed a long-time relationship with Brubaker Motors. There was a man named Mr. Cooper. Never will forget him. Whenever he got a nice car in, he'd call her. We're going to send it out to your house, and you try it out. If you like it, keep it. If you don't, send it back. I didn't know many black people that had that kind of clout in business. She also believed that you deal with the same people all the time, so you develop a rapport with that business. She did all her banking with First National Bank, right here, right over there. And all of her car transactions from the time she met Mr. Cooper were with Brubaker Motors. So don't let the ills of life end your life, make it better of them. I think that's what she would say.
I wanted to bring you here to the South Holt Baptist Church simply because this is where on December 5th, 1955, men, women, and children gathered here to hear Dr. King's speech about Rosa Parks. And not just Rosa Parks, but why it was necessary to have this boycott. So I want you to now reach inside your box, hand painted by me, of course, and I want you to pull out a shard of glass. That shard of glass actually came from this historical church. When they were restoring the building, the pastor, I went to the pastor and I asked him, can I have some of the shards of glass that you all have out here? He said, take all you need. So I did that because when I want you to come to Montgomery, but we're bringing Montgomery to you. The shard of glass was actually from December 5th, 1955. This church was built in 1909 and Black architects were the ones who built it. But I want you to have a piece of shard of glass and a piece of artwork by me. That pew that's in the artwork actually came from this church. So it was very important for women, number one, to be a part of this movement simply because we know how to pray. I don't know if you're atheist, Methodist, Episcopalian, Jewish, whatever your religion is, agnostic. You may not believe at all, but it was that belief in Christ that actually got them to the other side, like Moses in Exodus. December 5th, 1955, right here, 5,000 people gathered to hear Dr. King say, what we're getting ready to do tomorrow, if it's wrong, then Jesus Christ himself is wrong. Basically, he was gearing people up ready for this 382 days of boycotting. And it took women of prayer, they took the gloves off. And that's the name of the piece that's inside your package. Take the gloves off.
Precious Lord, take my hand and lead me on, and let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn through the storm and through the night. Lord, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me on.
So right here in Montgomery, Alabama, we have J. Marion Sims, who was the, quote, doctor. They deemed him as the father of gynecology, and he's at our state's capital. But right here on this street in a little unknown spot is his office, the sick house, where he did a lot of his experiments, where he would experiment on enslaved African women without anesthesia. When I say women, they were also young girls that he would perform these surgeries on. Just inhumane. So where are the mothers? Where is their contribution? Where are their statues? The world is now talking about tearing down statues honoring sick individuals such as this doctor. But where are the mothers? That's the question. Where are the women that have made great contributions that were forced into experiments? How come we can't speak their truths? So, y'all ain't ready for this. Just standing here in this site, on this site, where James Marion Sims performed a lot of his experiments, it's not only humbling, but it saddens me because these women, their voices aren't really heard. No, I mean, we've seen people do all kinds of documentation on them, but we really want to elevate their voice. We want the mothers of gynecology to come forth. And my good friend, her name is Michelle Summers, amazing talent here in Montgomery. And I asked her if she could do just, create a voice for them. And she said, Michelle, that voice is so deep. She said, what happened to these women, I really want to do them justice. So she's going to have something for us soon. And maybe one day you'll be able to come to Montgomery and actually watch her perform. She's an amazing actress. But I did ask her to come. There's a play called For Color Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Was Not Enough. Michelle Summers is going to leave you with some food for thought as we make our way throughout this journey.
Dark phrases of womanhood, of never having been a girl, half notes scattered without rhythm, no tune, distraught laughter falling over a black girl's shoulder. It's funny, it's hysterical, the melodylessness of her dance. Shh, don't tell nobody. Don't tell a soul. She's dancing on big hands and shingles. Well, this must be the Spook House. Another song with no singers and lyrics, no voices, unseen performances and interrupted solos. Are we ghouls? Children of horror? The joke? Don't tell nobody. Don't tell a soul. Are we animals? Have we gone crazy? I can't hear anything but maddening screams and the soft strains of death, and you promised me. You promised me. Somebody, anybody, sing a black girl song. Bring her out to know herself, to know you. Sing her rhythms, caring, struggle, hard times, torture. She's been dead for so long, closed in silence for so long, she don't even know the sound of her own voice, her infinite beauty. She's half notes scattered without rhythm, no tune. Sing her sighs, sing the song of her possibilities, sing a righteous gospel, and let her be born. Let us be born. Let her be born and handled warmly. This is for color girls who have considered suicide but are moving to the ends of their own rainbows.
So now that we've finished our tour, I wanted to end off right here in the historical community. Directly behind me, there are famous photos of women walking during the Montgomery bus boycott. This area is very famous. Just over my shoulder also, Mose T, a famous folk artist. His house is right here. But next year, May 2021, we would like to erect the Mothers of Gynecology, Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy, right here in this area. We want to honor them. There's a father of gynecology. Of course, there are mothers. who have been silenced through history. So right here, the Mothers of Gynecology. Also, there is a space, this is phase one, there's a space directly in the back of us here on this property that will house people like you who want to visit Montgomery, but you don't want to deal with the COVID. You would have limited contact. You can visit the museums and stay right here with us. And then directly behind us, there is a space called the Creative Changemakers Museum that will house resources for medical apartheid, information that talks about slavery by another name. So with that being said, we need your support. Won't you be a friend? Won't you be a mother? In the link below, there's more information on how you can become a friend of Anarcha Lucy and Betsy and or the More Up Project. Thank you so much, and it was so fun touring with you.